I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on February 25th, 2026 at 7 p.m. I am Linda Lukowski, Chair of the School Committee, and I want to welcome everyone here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families and the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you to everyone who took the time to come here tonight. I know it isn't easy with kids and busy schedules, but we think it is really important to gather feedback, and I'm glad you've made the effort to come and share your views on the tentative budget. I'm going to take the agenda out of order and put the hearing first so we can be respectful of your time. Therefore, I now open the public hearing on the Triton annual budget. If you wish to speak, please add yourself to the list on the clipboard you have done if you haven't done so already. The superintendent is going to review the proposed budget and the budget process so far, and then I will go down the speaker list in order. When it is your turn, please identify yourself by name and address as you begin. You may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, and if you brought a prepared statement, please hand it to the committee secretary once you've done, to be entered as part of the public record. The committee will not engage in a discussion with speakers due to the restrictions imposed by Massachusetts open meeting law, but the superintendent or other administrators may provide additional information or clarification if needed. The vote of the tentative budget just before school vacation was roughly the halfway point of the budget process and the time at which the committee moves from open discussion to propose a budget structure on which to receive feedback. The proposal will be adjusted based on the feedback and any new information received in meetings between now and the final budget vote on March 11th. All meetings are public, and we invite you to attend or watch the videos, and all meetings other than the District Communication Committee feature public comment periods should you want to continue to provide input. I also encourage you to watch or attend your local town select board meetings as well. The final budget will go to the 3 towns. The town meetings in April and May. The budget must be approved by a majority vote of 2 of the 3 town meetings to be considered approved and used for the 2026-27 school year. Brian, could you please go through the budget process and tentative budget?
Yes. Thank you, Linda. So I will do this briefly. I know we've been having these discussions for 2 months, and I'm going to guess the folks who are here tonight for the hearing have a sense of what's gone on. On the table, there are copies of the tentative budget. As Linda said, this is the first of 2 budgets that need to be approved by the committee. This is a preliminary budget that we then hold tonight's public hearing on by statute, and then the committee reconsiders any additional feedback and makes a final decision by March 11th. So the process that we have undertaken over the last several months includes original proposals from the principals and their school councils with the school improvement plans that express the needs of the schools. We then obviously also shared district-wide costs. We had one of those years where the general cost of doing business was in excess of $4 million without adding anything. It was roughly 4.25. As our process has normally unfolded, we work with our towns to try and gain insight into what they believe they can afford. As a 3-town region, we have the challenge of needing our budget approved by 2 of 3 towns. We have always worked to have it be something that all 3 towns can afford, because obviously the impact of that one town that does not support it can be pretty devastating as far as otherwise, or as the other services in town. So our goal has always been to get 3 of our towns able to support the budget, whether that includes an override or not. And so the committee went through a process by which they set some targets, a workshop in January, on a Saturday in January, worked through all the requests from the principals without adding anything new. Again, we were at about 4.25. We were up over $5.5 million if we included the requests that were requested by principals and other district-wide administrators. And so the target was set around 2.4. I got pretty close. I got it to about 2.565. And so what you have in front of you, if you have a copy of the budget on page 1 and 2, is a listing of the reductions that this budget assumes. I correct myself, the additions and reductions. And so on page 1, you can see all of the major cost drivers. Obviously, as a human services organization, we are largely personnel driven. And so 80% of our costs are tied up in salaries and benefits. Salaries and benefits alone this year are accounting for over $2.5 million. And so that's obviously a huge driver in the budget. On page 2, we detailed the reductions that I proposed based on the target that the committee set to get to that roughly $2.5 million mark. On pages 3 and 4 is the calculation of how we arrive at the assessment to our member towns. Page 4 is the step-by-step process that our regional agreement calls for. We have a top line that we then net off state aid and other general revenues, and then the balance is assessed to our member towns. Over 80% of our operating budget is paid directly by our 3 member towns. So you hear us talking about Chapter 70, the Chapter 70 formula, and the inadequacy of that, and how it has placed all of the funding for education, that burden on local communities. And so we continue to advocate for that. Our towns have continued to step up, increasing the overall assessments, millions each year. But it is certainly becoming unsustainable across the board. I would say that there's not really anything unique that's happening here at Triton. If I look and talk to my peers, other superintendents, and other regions nearby, like the Pentuckets or Hamilton Wenhams, or cities like Newport or smaller towns like Ipswich or Georgetown, everyone's dealing with the same pressures each year. Some towns have it worse than others based on different factors in the budget, but this is a universal problem that the state has walked away from funding education. So we find ourselves having a budget hearing tonight on a budget that goes the wrong way, rather than, excuse me, rather than being able to add and put the needs that the principals have identified and other administrators have identified into place, we find ourselves having to make reductions. We've had this discussion over the past couple of weeks, and just to clarify, the term right-sizing, we are a district that has decreased in enrollment along with many other towns across the North Shore. But as a district, we have decreased over 30% in the last 15 years alone. So there are some right-sizing adjustments within this budget that we would be making regardless of a challenging budget year. And those are right-sizing changes that have happened pretty routinely over the last 15, 20 years as our student population has decreased. But the majority of these are not right-sizing. These are impactful changes that I don't believe they're catastrophic, but they definitely do have an impact on the general operation of our district. So with that, I think does that give enough of a summary, do you think? Can hear the feedback.
When you come up to speak, Marissa's going to hold up a sign that says 1 minute and then 30 seconds so that we can make sure that we have time for everybody that wants to speak. So whoever would like to start.
Erin, do you want to monitor the list?
Hi, everybody. I'm usually standing in front of the microphone like this. I'm usually running them from back there. My name is Bob Lathrop. I'm from Ipswich, but for the last 25 or 30 plus years, I've been teaching here at Triton. First 25 years, I was a music teacher in the middle and the high school. And tonight, I'd like to rehearse some decisions that have been made over the last 30 years that have affected our music students. In 1995, I was hired as a third music teacher in an aligned 7 to 12 music program that was growing by leaps and bounds. A couple of you on the committee here tonight were in the department at that time or soon after. In 2000, a decision was made to split the junior high and high school and operate on different schedules. The new middle school schedule reduced the amount of time kids took music during the week. Music staff had to decide which school to teach in. Experienced staff went to the high school, and middle school began a years-long process of trying to find the right teachers. Student musical growth took a hit, but the program persevered. In 2002, a decision was made to cut the district budget in the middle of the year. The result was a reduction of music staff in each of the 3 elementary schools. Schedules had to change. Less music was offered during the school day. Band and chorus were moved after school, and user fees were charged. Participation began a long, slow decline. In 2012, a decision was made to partially realign the middle and high school schedules again for music and a few other classes. Experienced staff taught in both schools, and music participation improved. In 2015, a decision was made to offer new semester electives in the high school. As a result, classes didn't dovetail as easily as they once did, and students began to have difficulty fitting music into their schedule. Participation at the high school began a slow decline. Soon, the high school music staff was reduced to 1. In 2020, COVID hit, and the effect on music was devastating. For a year and a half, decision makers told us it was too dangerous to sing and play instruments together. Participation tanked. When the pandemic ended, we began to build back. In 2023, a decision was made to separate the middle and high school schedules again. Inexperienced staff came and went, momentum stopped. Chorus participation declined sharply. In 2024, a decision was made to turn the elementary music program around. Money was donated for instruments, band and chorus classes were moved back into the school day. Incredible growth has been realized. The middle and high school decided to realign their schedule. New staff was hired, more is being done with less, and there's hope for growth right around the corner. That brings us to tonight. A proposed 60% reduction of what is left of the middle and high school music program is on the table. The consequences of such a cut will be long-lasting. In the short term, 6th graders who are excited about music again will have very few options to look forward to when they move up. Long term, and I speak from experience here, once staff or programs are cut, they don't usually come back. Please make the right decision and keep the music department intact. Thank you.
Call my class.
Hello, my name is Bryce Porter, and I am a sophomore here at Triton High School. I speak today in defense of the cuts to Mr. Kemp's salary. In many ways, Mr. Kemp is the glue that holds Triton's performing arts together, and a lot of his hard work has gone unnoticed by much of Triton. Cutting his salary would seriously hamper the theater department, middle and high school chorus, and several other things that the students of Triton love. If we truly want more people to come to Triton, then we need to keep these beloved programs alive, and for that, we need Mr. Kemp. Mr. Kemp is also one of the most attentive teachers that I know. When I had him for concert band last year, he went out of his way to make sure that we had a personal say in the direction of the course. Novel ideas like this is what makes Mr. Kemp such a beloved teacher at Triton. I am certain that all of the students that he's had over the years can attest to the dedication and the compassion for teaching and the performing arts. To cut the salary of someone who has these virtues is inherently backwards. I understand that cuts need to be made to our budget. However, we need to find this in other areas of our district.
Hello, my name is James Amato. I'm a junior this year, and I came tonight to ask you not to cut the funding to our arts department. The reason I chose Triton is because it had a music program and other schools didn't have one that was as big. And I stuck with band through COVID and virtual trumpet lessons at Pine Grove. I picked up playing the tuba in middle school because I had the opportunity to. And with Mr. Kemp here, he's organized music in the parks. And my freshman year was great because of that. And this year, our jazz band is able to play at Rockport with their jazz band. These opportunities have existed because of the dedication of the staff here at Triton. Music is important to me, and I want to take AP Music Theory next year. And I hope to do an internship and work with the Triton elementary students. Cutting funding to our visual performing arts is going to negatively impact the opportunities I will have during my senior year. And I hope that we wouldn't have to do that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Drew Casantini. I'm from Salisbury, and I stand here as both a parent of two daughters who attend SES and an educator who's worked at Salisbury Elementary School for 18 years. I strongly oppose the proposed cuts to teachers and school staff. These reductions are not just line items on a spreadsheet. They represent real people and real classrooms, and if approved, our district will suffer. When we cut teachers, class sizes grow. When class sizes grow, individual attention shrinks. Students who are already struggling will fall further behind academically, socially, and/or emotionally. Our high-achieving students will also lose opportunities to be challenged and supported at the level they deserve. When we reduce support staff, paraprofessionals, counselors, specialists, EL, or SPED teachers, we are removing the very people who help hold our schools together. These staff members provide intervention, mental health support, academic reinforcement, and stability. In many cases, they are the trusted adults students rely on most. Teachers are already stretched thin. They are managing larger class sizes, increased behavioral challenges, expanded curriculum demands, and growing mental health needs, often without sufficient resources as it is. Cutting positions does not make the work disappear. It shifts the burden onto fewer people, increasing burnout and driving experienced educators out of the profession. When teachers leave, students lose continuity, mentorship, and quality instruction. Recruitment becomes harder, morale declines. The long-term cost of rebuilding a depleted workforce will far exceed the short-term savings that these cuts promise. What will Triton look like in 2, 5, 10 years from now if these cuts continue? We cannot say we value our students and their education while simultaneously reducing the adults who educate and support them. Budget decisions reflect priorities. If we prioritize balanced spreadsheets over balanced classrooms and enough staff to run a business, the cost will be paid by our students in lost learning, lost opportunities, and weakened support systems. Investing in teachers and school staff is a direct investment in our students' achievement, community stability, their workforce readiness, and the future of our district. I urge you to reconsider these cuts and explore alternatives that protect classroom instruction and student support services. Our students deserve more, not less. Our teachers and staff deserve more, not less. And our community deserves schools that are fully staffed and fully capable of meeting the needs of every child. Thank you.
I'm Jesse Ramignanti. I'm from Newbury, 12 Boston Road. I'm a Triton parent to 3, 1 graduate, 1 junior, and an 8th grader. I'm also the vice president of Triton Education Foundation. and I'm here today to respectfully ask you to reconsider a level services budget. Since my family moved to Newbury about 15 years ago, I've been deeply involved in the schools and the community. I was a public school kid myself, and I have a core belief in the importance of public education. Throughout my family's time here, I've always tried to be an advocate for Triton. My kids have had some truly wonderful teachers and enriching experiences here. However, if these proposed budget cuts go through, I'm going to have a difficult time continuing to be a Triton advocate. These are not small cuts we're talking about. They're going to increase class sizes, put pressure on our educators, and cut valuable programs. The core problem I see right now is that we're being asked to make a binary choice. Either we can fund the school operational budget, or we get a new building. The obvious answer to me is that we have to do both. We must do both. That's the responsible thing to do and what best serves our current and future Triton students. To say that we're going to make cuts now for the sake of the building project is deeply unfair to our current generation of students. Not only will they likely to be attending the middle and high school in a construction zone and getting the worst of the building, they're also going to be asked to bear the cost of the renovations with a degraded educational experience, and in all likelihood see more and more of their friends leaving the district. I also want to draw attention to the cuts that are being proposed for the music and performing arts. Both of my daughters are heavily involved in drama and music here at Triton. Music and drama have been a real bright spot at Triton recently. I don't know if any of you were able to make it to the middle school concert this year, but if you weren't, I can tell you it was awesome. The energy in the room was just like palpable. It was amazing. The talent level and the dedication of the staff, it was just on display. It was incredible. Then I lost my spot there. The music program has been hit hard since COVID, and it's finally seeing some real momentum. But now with these proposed cuts to the music program, all these gains and the work that our community members have done to rebuild the program are at risk. Losing a music program could easily take 10 years to recover from. Again, I want to be advocating for Triton, but if a family prioritizes music as part of their kids' education, how could I blame them for looking somewhere else? I know overrides are hard, but so is telling the kids that the music program is going to be gone. So is watching your kids' friends leave the district. When considering these overrides, please consider that we need to be clear-eyed. The demographics of the district towns have shifted significantly over the last 10 years. I think there's far more support for education in the towns than you realize, but you have to give us the chance to take these votes. Thank you.
Good evening. I thought I was just signing in. I didn't realize to come up here and speak, but at any rate, I'm totally unprepared. So to reiterate everything, those that have gone before me, I totally agree 100%. I retired 15 years ago from SES, grade 6. I was on school committee. I totally appreciate and respect everything you people have done, superintendent, administration. Our three towns, I live in Salisbury. Our three towns, even Salisbury, are doing quite well. Our poverty level is 5% max, all three towns. Take a look at what people pay for their homes. I don't want to say we are, as a district, a wealthy community, but as we used to always say, education is expensive, try ignorance. So again, I appreciate your hard work. Keep it up. I think and I'm sure you've been meeting with town managers and all of that. Keep going. We need an override. We need to level fund. 15 years we've been living on a fixed income. My husband and I are both retired. There's nothing more important than funding our kids' education. So thanks for what you're doing. Keep up the hard work.
Joe Atchison, 32 Pleasant Street in Rowley. I want to thank the committee for having us tonight. I'm a parent of 2 in the Triton District, 7th grader and an 11th grader. I'm also the president of Triton Education Foundation. Pleased to see several of our volunteers in the room tonight. So a couple of points I want to raise, kind of building off some of the earlier points. One is I think we all recognize that there's things to improve with Triton. The building is an issue, but what happens within this building, I think is exceptional. I think there's exceptional staff members. I think there's an exceptional committee that's dedicated to the community here. Administration, the teachers are excellent, and they're producing excellent students coming out of this district. As part of TEF, we have the opportunity to review scholarship applicants every year. It's a difficult exercise for us to only pick a handful of those, who apply for those scholarships every year because there's so many deserving students that are coming out of here. That cannot continue to happen if we erode, the talent pool and the quality and the depth of the educators in this building. So I think what I am asking of the committee, tonight and going forward is to, bring in the community as early as possible going forward. From what I've heard is that, these conversations used to start months earlier in the process. And I think, to Jesse's and others' points, I think there is strong support for supporting education in the community. The demographics are changing. We need to get more of us out, more of the younger parents out, more of the future parents out in the community. And as well as, I appreciate the support of, those who do not have kids in the district anymore and still supporting education. So I think if we continue to tell these stories, I agree with Jesse, the building is not optional, the building needs to happen, but I also think we cannot lay down and let, these cuts happen without a great amount of public discourse on them. Piggybacking on some of the fine arts discussion, over break, I was bringing my 7th grader and her friend to the mall. And that 20-minute drive, which we've all done, where we just listen to what's happening in the back seat. Yes, there were sports discussed. Yes, there was a math class or test discussed. But about half of the drive was talking about Mr. Kemp and the possible loss of Mr. Kemp and how beloved he is. And he's just one of the many excellent educators. So I think we owe it to our kids and the community to fight for every single staff member's position here and to not simply accept it as inevitable. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Molly Donovan, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Salisbury Elementary School. I'm here to advocate for our students and the conditions they need to succeed. At Salisbury, we believe every child can succeed. We work hard to create classrooms where students feel safe, supported, and inspired, while holding high expectations and providing the support needed to meet them. The proposed reductions, 2 classroom teachers, 1 special education teacher, 1 EL teacher, and 2 instructional assistants directly impact our ability to uphold that commitment. I previously worked as a Title I interventionist, and I saw firsthand how critical interventionist prevention positions are for student success. Every interventionist role matters. Those roles provide targeted instruction that helps close gaps, build confidence, and prevent students from falling further behind. Reducing staff in these areas does not just shift the responsibility, it removes opportunities for students to receive the support they need to thrive. Class size matters. Student-to-teacher ratio is not just a number. It determines how much attention, feedback, and support each child receives. When I taught 3rd and 5th grade with class sizes of 16 to 18 students, I was able to truly know my students, work closely with them, meet with them consistently, and differentiate instruction more effectively. In years when I've had larger class sizes of 20 to 24 students, I have felt the impact immediately. The ability to provide individualized attention decreases and the demands increase significantly. In recent years, we also have seen increasing academic needs, social emotional needs, and behavioral challenges among students. Effective teaching requires responsiveness, but it becomes far more challenging when there are fewer staff members, less support, and more students in front of us at one time. There are also practical limitations. Our classrooms were not designed to hold significantly more students. Adding several more students is not simply inconvenient, it changes the learning environment in ways that make effective teaching more difficult and less responsive. Cutting a special education teacher and an EL teacher and instructional assistants compounds this issue further. These professionals are essential to providing inclusive and required support for students with diverse learning needs. When those positions are reduced, the impact extends beyond those specific students. It affects every classroom teacher and every learner in the building. It also increases compliance responsibilities and reduces student-facing time. I understand that the budget challenges are real and difficult decisions must be made. However, classrooms are the core of what we do. If we want to maintain the positive momentum our schools are building, we must protect direct student-facing positions and explore solutions outside the classroom before reducing educators who work with students every day. Our students only get one 5th grade year, one 6th grade year. They cannot get that time back. It's not lost on me that I'm wearing a neon pink shirt as I address you tonight. While it may stand out, I hope it serves as a reminder to stand out for the roles that matter most, the student-facing educators who work with children every day. The impact of those losses will not be temporary. They will continue to ripple through classrooms, student experiences, and our district for years to come. If we truly believe that every child can succeed, then we must be willing to provide the people, time, and support that make success possible, because budgets are numbers, but children are not. Thank you for your time, your service, and your consideration.
Hi, my name is Joanne Levesque. I live in Salisbury. I have 3 daughters that went through the district, and they're doing very well. I was the administrative assistant to the principal for over 20 years, and I came to just support the teachers. However, I signed the paper too. All I can say is I've seen what budget cuts have done being in the school system. And the teachers, the kids, it just doesn't work for them. And the smaller the classes, the better the kids learn. You can't take that away from the kids. The support is very important. Like Drew and Molly had said, there's a lot that comes into the building. The kids need the support. They need to know their teachers. And some kids, they just need a little more support from other people. I just wish that you can find a different way to make your cuts. I feel that children need all the support they can get at the elementary level. And this is where their educational foundation begins. And we don't want to cut them back from not having that information, support, until continuing with their later years. Thank you. And I do appreciate everything that you do.
Hi, I'm Sonia Vincola from Boxford Road in Rowley, and yes, I do want to appreciate all that you do. I know it's a thankless job. I also appreciate everything that has been said before me. It's all been said very well, and I agree with it all. But what I would like to speak to is, after an extensive review of the local private schools and school choice options, we've decided that my son Nicholas would like to stay at Triton. We value being part of the Triton community, and it's important for him to continue here. I just fear that we may come to regret that decision. In the coming years, as Triton faces mounting budget constraints, I worry that students like my son may see their educational and extracurricular opportunities diminished. I understand the district's obligations and constraints. I just worry that in fulfilling these obligations, Nicholas and his younger brother will lose out on challenging and enriching coursework and the opportunities and activities that make their time here meaningful and memorable. My own public high school experience included honors and AP coursework that prepared me well. I want the same strong academic foundation and opportunities for my children. This year and in future years, as you make difficult budget decisions, I ask you to keep in mind students like my son, students who want to be engaged members of the Triton community and who deserve academically rigorous coursework and meaningful opportunities. Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Alyssa King. I'm at 29 Oakledge Circle in Rowley. My children are in kindergarten and third grade at Pine Grove School. I'm also the PTA president at Pine Grove and have been lucky enough to have the unique opportunity to see inside the daily life at Pine Grove School. And what I've known since my kids started there and what I've seen in those hallways every day since is an exceptional culture of support, safety, trust, and good character that is driven by the incredible people who work there with our students every day and the individualized attention that those small classes provide. I should share, I'm 100% in favor of fully funding our school budget and particularly not cutting staff positions. I've seen what happens when we make cuts to the budget. During my time at Pine Grove, we've lost the STEAM program, we've lost our social emotional learning program, and continuing to chip away at these programs, and especially to carve out the heart of our schools, our teachers, all to avoid override votes, would be devastating to us parents. It would be a negative impact to our students, and as I see it, detrimental to our communities as a whole. I know that budgets are tight for many families right now, and people are worried about high property taxes, particularly in Rowley, but I want you to know that I would much rather pay more each year to invest in our youth, invest in our schools, and invest in our community's future. Please give our towns the opportunity to vote on a level budget. Thank you so much for your ongoing time, your commitment to our school and staff and students. It's really appreciated.
Good evening. My name is Linda Gangemi, and I've been part of the Triton District for 30 years, over 30 years. During that time, I have seen many good moments and many difficult ones. While I am currently a physical education teacher at Salisbury Elementary, I have had the privilege of serving in many roles throughout my time here. I was a classroom teacher, I worked as a Title I math teacher, and I've supported students in other teachers' classrooms as well. These experiences have given me a unique perspective on the needs of our students and on the importance of sustaining programs that help them succeed. Over the years, I've witnessed cuts, many of which were never restored. Experience has taught me that once something is gone, it is very difficult to bring it back. However, instead of focusing on what we've lost, I want to focus on the future and on how we may move forward. I want to focus on something that comes up often in conversations with my colleagues, with my family, and most recently with the TRTA. Where do we go from here? While my time at Triton is coming to an end, this problem that we are all here discussing is not going away. It will continue to affect students, educators in the district long after I'm gone. I also face the very real possibility of one day soon being asked to support an override by my town to fund public education and having to answer with the words, no. That is a real difficult reality to face, and it underscores the urgent need for a sustainable solution. I am extremely proud of this district. Truly, I think it is one of the best. When people ask me, is Triton a good district? My answer is always emphatic, yes. We support children in every way possible. I am lucky to work with a dedicated staff who do everything they can to help students succeed. I can say that about all 3 elementary schools, as I've had the privilege to teach in each of them. At the same time, I'm a realist. As Mr. Forget mentioned in his weekly scoop, this is not a Triton issue. It's a Massachusetts issue, especially in the North Shore. I chose to live here because of the educational opportunities for my own children. Education is deeply personal for me. There are 6 immediate family members of mine that are teachers. We teach for the daily rewards of seeing our students grow, not for the money, but we do need to be able to live. One of the things that makes me proudest is seeing former Triton students return to teach here and in the neighboring communities. We also have former students who now trust us with their own children. That speaks volumes of the impact that we have. We are doing many things right, but we also need to be pragmatic. Educators must be able to afford to live in the communities where we teach. Under the current Massachusetts funding structure, that is increasingly difficult. Neighboring districts are facing devastating cuts as well. Communities cannot constantly rely on overrides. This system sets all of us up for more derision. We must work collaboratively within Triton, across the North Shore, and statewide to develop a sustainable plan, one that ensures our schools get the resources they need without placing an unsustainable burden on our towns. So I return to the question, where do we go from here? We move forward together. We advocate together. We plan strategically and thoughtfully so that 10, 20, 30 years from now, someone else can stand here and say that they are as proud of the Triton District as I am today. I want to ensure that what we have built is not something we slowly lose, but something we intentionally protect and strengthen. Our students are worth the effort. Reactive cuts and repeated overrides cannot be our long-term solution. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Diamond. I reside at 56 Boston Road in Newbury. I currently have 2 children enrolled at NES in pre-K and kindergarten. I'm an active member of the PTA and serve as one of the parent representatives on the NES School Council. Having grown up in neighboring Georgetown, I was always aware of the strong reputation of the Triton School District. That reputation played a strong role in my family's decision to purchase a home in Newbury. At a recent school committee meeting, there was a discussion about our district's aging population. While that demographic reality is accurate, I believe it makes long-term sustainability even more important. If we continue to reduce educational programming and eliminate instructional supports, we must ask ourselves, what will continue to attract young families to Newbury, Salisbury, and Rowley? What incentives remain for educators to stay in a district where expectations continue to rise while resources steadily decline? And what will prevent current families from pursuing school choice options elsewhere, ultimately resulting in additional financial loss for the district? I would also like to raise an important concern regarding staffing reductions. Our district has both a moral and legal obligation to provide mandated services and supports to students with IEPs and 504 plans. Those protections are essential and non-negotiable. However, as staffing decreases, educators are increasingly required to prioritize legally mandated services. This will leave fewer available supports for students who do not qualify for a 504 or IEP, but who still require additional behavioral, academic, and emotional assistance to succeed. I question how the reduction of staff will help each school meet their individual goals set forth in their school improvement plans. I respectfully ask the committee to consider whether continued reductions in staffing, programming, and student supports may be contributing factors to declining enrollment over the last decade. Families look for districts that invest in comprehensive educational experiences and adequately supported classrooms. The long-term health of our schools and the communities they serve depends on maintaining instructional quality, supporting educators, and ensuring that all students, not only those with legal protections, have access to the support that they need to thrive. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Goldner, and I live at 19 Pearson Drive in Byfield. I will be upfront that I wear many hats in the Triton and Newbury communities, among them teacher and parent. Tonight, I'm speaking to you with my parent hat on, informed by my many years as an educator. I will start by saying that as a parent of 2 students at Newbury Elementary and as a property owner, taxpayer, and voter, I will not be voting in favor of the currently proposed tentative budget. It is not enough. Every year of my children's education has been fraught with budget cuts. After COVID, it was the much-loved STEAM teacher, which you will note the elementary schools continuously request in their budgets, as well as a social-emotional education teacher, which is also continuously requested in another form, individual school social workers. Both of these requests are continuously denied. Since then, it hasn't seemed so impactful on a yearly basis. You are all told we are not cutting programming, we're cutting a few teachers, some IAs, supply budgets, it's just right sizing. But those just cuts add up and have real impacts. My children and the children of the Triton communities have fewer opportunities to learn as a whole child now than they did even during COVID. Their teachers with larger class sizes and smaller budgets have fewer opportunities to get to know their individual strengths and their challenges, and fewer resources with which to do it. We cannot continue down this path. Our children deserve a school system that is the center of their community, that builds a future for them with opportunities to explore their interests while also growing their intellect. At the onset, I stated that I was also advocating as a voter. I believe in a representative democracy. We, the voters, elected you. You are part of that representative democracy. at a smaller scale. According to the Education Act of 1993, the 3 key responsibilities for Massachusetts school committees include, and I quote, to establish educational goals and policies for the district, oversee the school budget, and hire and evaluate the superintendent of schools. You are essentially Triton's Congress. You are the checks and balances. What I see when I watch these meetings on YouTube is a committee who has forgotten or abdicated those responsibilities in favor of acquiescing to the towns in terms of budget and taking at face value the administration's word for the functioning of the schools without consulting or, in many cases, even visiting the students and teachers. And who loses? Always, always the students. As your constituent and voter, I am here asking you to reclaim your responsibilities and present the towns with a budget that aligns with the goals and values that you, yourself, have set for Triton, rather than one that some out-of-touch town officials say that they can support. Paul Mayette was right. Leave it up to us, the voters, to pass a real budget that meets the needs of the students so that we can ensure a future for our children and for Triton. Thank you so much.
You'd think I know how to work one of these things. Hi, I'm Craig Kemp. I'm the music teacher at the middle and high school. I'm really here just to advocate for the music program itself. I have some numbers that I think would be very interesting to hear and some research that has backed up the benefits and value that you're going to see in a music program and how it impacts the students. For example, we currently only have 2 full-time music teachers between the middle and high school. So cutting to the VPA 0.6 means we'll have 1.4. Our current ratio is 1 music teacher for every 425 students. Now the state average is 1 for every 350. That's before the cut. If we were to cut music more, that's 1 music teacher for 600 students. That is not even getting close to the average. So that's going to really impact and produce measurable outcomes and financial returns if we maintain the consistency of this. First of all, the achievement. The large-scale research consistently links sustained music participation to higher academic performance. A population-level study of more than 112,000 students found that high engagement in music produced gains equivalent to nearly 1 additional year of learning in math, science, and English. In-school participation in music predicts stronger reading and math outcomes and narrow socioeconomic achievement gaps. Students enrolled in high-quality music programs score 20 to 22% higher in English and math than peers in deficient programs. Longitudinal and randomized research further demonstrates gains in literacy, numeracy, executive functioning, GPA, and advanced coursework completion. National Endowment for the Arts kind of verified all of this. The outcomes reduce remediation, strengthen graduation readiness, and generate long-term cost efficiencies. Secondly, the attendance and engagement that we're looking at. Schools with robust music programs report graduation rates nearly 90% and attendance rates around 94%. Compared to 73% and 85% in schools without music programs. Students involved in music report stronger belonging and maintain higher GPAs in funding models tied to enrollment and attendance, improved engagement directly stabilized district revenue, and reduced expenditures associated with truancy and dropout recovery. Third, the fiscal stability and equality. Locally, access to music education is already limited. Removing in-school music instruction shifts participation outside of the curricular day, and it reduces equitable access for students without transportation or those who work and have caregiving responsibilities. The district has spent 2 years rebuilding a coherent 7 to 12 music sequence, aligned to growing participation. A reduction at this stage would dismantle that pipeline, force ensemble cancellations, and risk student departures to neighboring districts with stronger offerings. Rebuilding later would require new recruitment, training, and community re-engagement costs. The projected savings from a reduction of 0.6 FTE into the music program are modest at best, and the potential academic and financial losses are not. Sustained music participation correlates with higher achievement, stronger attendance, and improved retention. Preserving the program protects both student outcomes and district stability. So reducing it risk sacrificing measurable returns for short-term saving. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Burns. I live at 3 Scotland Heights in Newbury. I have 3 kids. My son Alex is a senior, and I've had 2 kids graduate in 2020 and 2023. I'm a member of the Triton Education Foundation and the Triton Music Parents Boosters. As you've already heard several times, the tentative budget includes a reduction in the visual and performing arts of 60%. The teacher that would be cut is the current chorus teacher, Mr. Kemp. I'm assuming Mr. Kemp will not stay at Triton if he is no longer a full-time employee. I'm not sure how you hire someone to be a part-time teacher for chorus and music theory due to the waterfall schedule. And to my knowledge, there is no current teacher at Triton that is able to take on the role of teaching choir, music theory classes, and the Tri-M Music Honor Society, which was started at Triton by Mr. Kemp. The students love Mr. Kemp, and the chorus has only increased in numbers since he took over the program. The Triton Arts program is growing in popularity with the students after struggling during the COVID years. Why are you cutting the program now when you are seeing a strong increase in participation from students in chorus and band in the elementary schools and middle schools? Is the plan to not offer chorus at the middle school and high school? What's up next? Cutting band? In my experience with prior teacher cuts, the positions are usually not restored. I'm asking to restore the visual and performing arts teacher to full-time. Art is an essential part of the human experience. It enables us to communicate with one another, express ourselves, and get new perspectives on the world. Arts education can help high school students develop their creativity, critical thinking skills, and problem-solving abilities. It can also help build self-confidence and resilience. For high school students, arts education is crucial for a variety of reasons. Here are a few examples. Creativity. By allowing students to express themselves in a variety of ways, arts education can aid in students' creative growth by generating fresh ideas and problem-solving techniques. Critical thinking. Analyzing and interpreting different works of art can help students better understand the world around them and make informed decisions. Problem solving. As students develop skills to come up with solutions to creative challenges, they can better deal with challenges in their everyday lives. Social confidence. Arts education can help students develop self-confidence by giving them the opportunity to succeed in a challenging environment. This can help them believe in themselves and their ability. Growth mindset. This is the belief that you can learn and improve with effort. Arts education can help students develop a growth mindset by providing them with opportunities to challenge themselves and learn new things. Well-rounded individuals. Many students can explore and discover their interests and talents outside of the classroom. This can make them more well-rounded individuals and give them a competitive edge in college and the workforce. An arts education can benefit high school students in many ways. A student who is shy may be able to come out of their shell by participating in a drama class. A student who is struggling with their self-esteem may be able to boost their confidence by learning to play an instrument or by participating in chorus. A student who is interested in pursuing a career in the arts may be able to get the training and experience they need through arts education. A student who is interested in a particular field such as science or business may be able to use the skills they learn in arts education to better understand that field. A student who is simply looking for a way to express themselves creatively may find that arts education provides them with the outlet they need. Arts education is especially important in high school when students are making important decisions about their future. Arts education can help students explore their interests and talents, and it can also help them develop the skills they need to succeed in college and the workforce. Please restore the Triton Arts position to full-time.
Hello, my name is Brett Elger. We live at 71 Pearson Drive in Byfield. Our kids go to NES and I'm on the PTA board. I want to share a perspective that is less about the budget and more about having a voice. In 2015, we actually moved to Rowley. We bought a house 15 Brook Street and I started getting involved in the town there. I was the chair of the Open Space Committee and I attended my first annual town meeting, the one specifically about Pine Grove's rebuild. It was my first ever time being at a meeting like that. And the police chief and the fire chief from Raleigh both got up and went through an alarmingly long list of building security and safety issues at Pine Grove. And yet I was in shock that many people in the room voted against that. I was embarrassed. I was shocked that people in a town could not support having a safe and secure building for kids to go to school. We moved away in 2017, and in moving back, we sold our house and moved to Newbury. And I started attending those town meetings, and again was shocked that people were voting against badly needed improvements to our town buildings and services, including NES. 2 years ago, someone at our town meeting suggested that the building repair needs of the fire department should be a Boy Scout project to save money. And several times there's been votes where people voted against the town of Newbury paying overdue bills of less than $1,000. There are loud voices in our towns that want to keep every nickel for themselves, but they are not the majority. I am here representing the many more silent voices. Those voices can't attend all the meetings, they can't track all the documents, they can't stay continually in the ears of select boards. Rather, in the evenings, they are coaching, they're helping their kids with homework, they're cleaning up after dinner, they're reading books to their kids as they fall asleep in bed. I hope my kids right now are getting a bath. I'm here on behalf of them to let you know there are a lot of young families that moved here in the last 10 years. Their roots are here, they're growing deeper, and their future is here. The other commenters have described the many reasons why you should consider a budget higher than what you've already passed. And should you do that, I fully expect and can assure you that the families in our three towns will find their voices in May and will continue for years to come. Thank you.
Hello again. I'm Leslie Curran, 68 Pearson Drive. I have 2 kids at NES. A lot of the points I was going to make, I think, have been made really well by others, so I'll try to keep it pretty quick. I want to talk again about class size, in part because I think a lot of aspects of what make a school good are intangible, and class size is really not intangible. It's quite quantitative. And the research is really clear on all the benefits of it. Many others before me have articulated them well, and the impacts, especially for class sizes of 18 and younger and fewer, and especially for grades K to 3, right? That's where the impacts are the greatest. And in fact, the impacts of being in smaller class sizes for grades K to 3 continue even if they are not in small classes as they hit middle school and high school, right? The positive impacts continue all the way through high school. Improved reading, improved math, improved study skills. Kids who are able to take to be in smaller classes in K to 3 take more advanced classes when they get older. They're more likely to attend college. And one thing we really haven't talked about is that these gains are especially true for low-income students and students of color. And those are the most vulnerable populations who are going to get hit the hardest if our class sizes increase. And we don't want, we want, and as a gentleman mentioned earlier, there are also broader effects of smaller class sizes on the school, right? It improves a positive school climate. It allows for more socio-emotional growth. It reduces behavioral issues when teachers have 17 kids instead of 23 kids. There's a bunch of teachers in here, I'm sure they will tell you that doesn't sound like a big difference in a budget line, even a couple kids here and there, but it's a huge difference. And as someone mentioned, that also has all these cascading effects. Teacher retention, right? Who are we able to attract to come here, and are we able to keep them, right? Why would someone want to come and take a job in Triton if they think they might get laid off next year, or their class sizes are going to go up and up and up? And so the effects of class sizes are really important. And I guess I just wanted to kind of finish by saying, you know, I came to the last meeting and I said a similar message. I saw what the result of the vote was, and it was really, really disappointing because, as Brett just mentioned, you know, it just removes all the agency from the people in these towns. And I mean, there were overrides last year. I was at the votes. They weren't close. And so I don't really know what else the towns need to do to demonstrate that we are willing to pay more, right? We don't want to have many of us don't want to have the lowest tax rate in the state. Many of us think that's embarrassing because you get what you pay for. And so there are plenty of people, as Brett said, who are willing to pay more, but you have to give us the opportunity to vote for that. And it's very frustrating to have that agency taken away by not even giving us the chance to vote for a higher budget. Thank you.
So my name is Joelle McCaslin. I'm at 50 Moulton Street in Byfield. I have 2 daughters at NES. I didn't come prepared with a statement. I also thought it was a sign-up sheet, so I did not do this well. But I wanted to share just my observations of sort of being here in the room, being one of the last to speak, maybe kind of just sum up that we all, I think, know the value of education. That's why we're here. That's why all of us came today, because we care. Most of you are educators or working in the education field day to day. You know the impact. You know why arts matter. You know why science matters. We know having well-rounded children is really what we want to have to help them be successful in their life as they get older. Cutting individuals is a really hard thing to do. I work in corporate America. It's hard decisions. I was laid off just a few weeks ago. It's hard. It's a hard environment that we're all in. That said, what I feel like I have been missing from watching these meetings has been a long-term view. A long-term view, a long-term strategy for our towns, for our children. We have the new school that we've been talking about. Obviously, it's very exciting to get that off the ground. But what are we going to do year over year? As someone just mentioned, I think it was Leslie, you know, having one teacher's salary, you know, cut or having one teacher removed completely from a school 1 year to the next is very short-sighted. It's very reactive, right? It's not something proactive that we're doing to think differently about how we're organizing ourselves in our schools. And again, I am not an educator. I don't know all the regulations. I don't know all the official things we can and cannot do, but I wonder if people have come to this discussion with really out-of-the-box thinking. Should we be changing how we organize ourselves as a district? Should we be thinking about using the 3 different elementary schools in a different way? Should we be consolidating services across schools? Should we have an upper elementary and a lower elementary spread across the towns? Are there ways that we can do these sorts of out-of-the-box thinking that help? Perhaps not, but it would be nice to know that some of those sorts of considerations are coming into play here in terms of where do we take the school, not just for next year or the year after that, as everything comes into play with the budgets time and time again. We are going to support you as the community with our voices in our towns. We are growing in many towns in many ways. I know it's an aging population in some communities, but there is a passion here. We saw it with the override votes last year, and I think this is something that we could really bring the community together and really drive forward to make a lasting difference for Triton and the whole communities that we live in. So, thank you.
Okay, I was not prepared to speak, but I would feel silly if I walked away from tonight without speaking. My name's Ellen Ellsworth. I'm at 18 Moody Street in Byfield. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old one at NES. I've heard a lot of wonderful things tonight. I completely and wholeheartedly agree with them and realize that both sides are right? You're both trying to move the needle forward. What I didn't hear was a lot of talk about the science and tech side of things. My background is 20 years in the manufacturing sector as an engineer. The arts and the sciences and tech ed are so vital for people to see that they belong. As a woman, as a female, as an engineer, I took a tech ed class in high school because they offered it. It was the best thing I did. I was the only female there, and it stemmed me to believe that I could then go on to be an engineer, an extremely successful one that worked in a very prestigious leadership program for General Electric. I moved here 10 years ago because of the schools. I moved away from Hamilton Wenham, moved to Ohio, and searched far and wide for some of the best schools to raise my family in. Like I said, I have a 6- and 3-year-old, so I thought long and hard. I knew I was going to have a family. If we don't build the district and continue to move it forward, people like me aren't going to move here. I looked at moving to Georgetown to be closer to my family and saw that their school is going in the opposite direction. Do we want to be that? Have our kids move away, choose to be elsewhere? Choose to go to a Whittier? That's what I'm thinking about already. And I have a kindergartner. That's just unacceptable. We need to be thinking about our futures. If you look around, we've talked about bringing manufacturing back. There's nobody that wants to work with their hands. We're not teaching them how to do it. We're not teaching them to be creative. We're just allowing and seeing, we need them to teach them the basics of English and math, etc. But how are we allowing them to think creatively, to think differently, to work with their hands? We're going to be in trouble if all we have is a bunch of kids that are so educated that all they can do is sit in a cube. I worked beside an MIT grad and a Tufts grad. I went to UMass Lowell, and I was chosen for the prestigious program because I knew how to get dirty and think creatively and work with my hands and work with a team, not because I got the best grades. And I don't mean to talk about myself, but that's what's important. That's what we all need to think about, is where did we come from and what got us to where we are? And what does that mean for our kids? Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Hello, Michael Colburn, Salisbury Selectman. You guys know where I stand on this. I hate it, but I understand where it's coming from. I love the passion from everyone here, but the reality is it's not just the override this year. It's an override next year, especially for Raleigh, because they're going to have more kids next year. Raleigh's seen an increase, and Raleigh has to keep up with it. Newbury has to keep up, and Salisbury has to keep up. But what people don't understand is if we're going to be in the same situation next year. We voted for, the other two towns voted for an override last year. If you vote for only what you need this year, you're going to need another override next year because of the right sizing. I know I talked to my peers, the 15 members of each 3 communities. We all know this, but go to Facebook, go to town meetings. We all in this room are very passionate about this. I 100% believe that the $4 million should have been funded. You guys know that. I have not been shy about that comment, but I know what reality is. Reality is it won't pass. It won't. You don't have enough votes. You don't know that. I'm just telling you for a fact. You don't have enough votes. I support it. I'll be the largest advocate and fighting for you, but the reality is you don't have enough votes. That's what really, really burns me more than anything. As an alumni of this school, Mrs. Puritan tells me all the time, 1996, the year I graduated, Salisbury learned its lesson about education. We were decimated as a school system. It's right sizing again. We're decimated as a school system. town meeting, 125 people need to come as a quorum in Salisbury. You know how long it usually takes us to get to a quorum? At least a half an hour, 45 minutes. But I know, you gotta put your kid to bed, you gotta put him in a wash, you gotta go to a football game, you gotta go here, you gotta go here. Reality is, you need to be at town meeting. That's the reality. Because the Board of Selectmen members, I can tell you, all 15 of us, feel your pain. We want our kids to be strong. But reality is, this room is not the argument. The argument needs to be made at town meeting. Not with these people, not with the Board of Selectmen, because we all support it. But reality is, anyone who's gone to a Raleigh town meeting, what's the reality? No on overrides. It's chaos. Newbury, same thing, Jane. With all due respect, Salisbury's the same way. Yeah, historically, anyone who knows me, I've been watching it for 30 years. It's the same thing every single year. I'm with you. I want to stand with you and fight with you. But what do we have? 40 people. Until we change that problem, our school will not be as strong as I know it can be and what it should be. And the real fight is at the State House. Every person who votes for the people who are elected in our towns and cities need to be voted out. They all do not support this. You know why? Because they don't have the votes. That's reality. They don't have votes in the State House. We're at 17%. In 10 years, we went from 38 to 17. Guess what? Budget's going up next year. State's not giving any more money.
Hi, Mike.
Now, at the end of the day, I support every single one of these kids in all 3 towns. I love every single one of them. But reality is, we don't have the votes.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay. Sorry, Jane, 3 minutes per person. I want to thank all of you who spoke. I appreciate you all being here. In response to a question raised during recent public comment regarding whether a member of the school committee who has a family member employed by the district may participate in votes taken on the tentative or final district budget and whether it is a violation of state ethics. The district sought a formal legal opinion from the law firm of Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane on this practice. At this time, I will read an excerpt from that opinion. A complete copy of the opinion is maintained in the superintendent's office and is available upon request. You have correctly identified the Ethics Commission as the proper standard to be used in determining whether a conflict exists. In that case, citing the Supreme Justice Court opinion in Graham versus McGrail, the commission stated that in situations where committee members or their relatives had financial interests in particular budget line items, the committee members should recuse themselves from discussion or ratification of CBAs involving that particular line item, but could participate in the consolidated vote on the budget as a whole. This participation can involve the discussion of cuts to their line items unrelated to the conflicted line item. The commission further stated that if reduction in force provisions were being considered by a school committee, committee members would be forced to recuse only if it were obvious or reasonably foreseeable that their family members were vulnerable for layoff or demotion because of their seniority level. Thus, if any reasonably considered layoff would not immediate family members of school committee members because their seniority would make them secure, a committee member could even participate in that line item discussion. The prohibition of participation in matters involving conflicts of interest extends to matters involving the wages, hours, or working conditions of conflicted members of their families. Ethics opinions do not contain extensive discussion of what matters may constitute working conditions for purposes of this prohibition. The Commission has posted that committee members would have to recuse only if there was a reasonable foreseeable possibility that the provision at issue would actually apply to that family member. The school committee has been and will continue to have all members vote on the tentative and final budgets since this is allowed under state ethics. This was important to make sure that people heard, because at our last meeting, someone questioned the ethics of this committee. So I want to be sure that people realize that we follow the rules, we follow open meeting laws, we follow the regional agreements. We will now continue on to the FY27 budget deliberation. Committee members, Deborah is going to make sure you get copies of any written statements that were received tonight. We didn't meet last week because of the vacation week, our longest break in over a month. While members are encouraged to monitor budget-relevant information outside of our meetings with everything that happened in the last 2 weeks, I think it's important to retell the budget-relevant portions of some particular discussions for the sake of context and background as impartially as possible. On Monday, February 9th, the Raleigh Select Board discussed the budget at their business meeting. As noted previously from the documentation provided by the town of Raleigh to Paulise, Narissa, Brian, and Rich, the town is anticipating a $2.5 million shortfall when they take the $1.3 million assessment increase proposed for the tentative budget into account. They discussed the possibility of an override or cuts in town services, but noted that the town departments are currently understaffed. On Tuesday, February 10th, the Newbury Select Board discussed the January 29th District Communication Committee meeting and the budget. The conversation was largely about the district budget process, the concept that the school committee's role and responsibilities in the budget process should be focused only on student need, and the town boards need to figure out how to pay for it. In their opinion, that the tentative budget should be voted at the full improvement budget amount based on the principals and administrators' requests made in mid-January. The comments made at the budget public hearing required by mass law would then be based on that amount. While this was a discussion and there was no vote to indicate the official position of the board, it did seem that a majority of the members shared these opinions. On Thursday, February 12th, the District Communication Committee met. In addition to school committee members and district administration, there was one Finance Committee member from Raleigh, one Select Board member from Salisbury, and two Select Board members and a Finance Committee member from Newbury. Raleigh's representative affirmed that the town struggled with the high assessment. One of the Newbury Select Board members questioned the budget process around not proposing the higher number as the tentative budget to allow the public to comment on that, and then dropped the budget as necessary before the final budget vote. The Salisbury Select Board member voiced concerns about the cuts at the middle school and noted the number of emails he had received from irate Salisbury parents about them. He noted that communities have known about the enrollment shifting that has been happening over recent years and stated his belief that the other two towns should have been financially planning for the effects. I, the school committee chair, posed a question to the Newbury Select Board member who had spoken previously about what the Select Board would have done should a level service budget number with a $4.2 million increase been proposed. And he responded that it is easy to say since it's not sitting in front of them now, but that he believed the town would make it work. That was additional discussion on some of these items, but I believe these were the primary points. The following day, February 13th, I became aware of an email that school committee member Matt Landers sent to Newbury Select Board and Town Administrator. I'm going to ask Matt if he could relate with that exchange.
On Thursday night, I sent an email to the Newbury Select Board Chair and the Town Administrator since I was confused by the statements made at the DCC. I wanted to clarify their intention to fund a level services budget. I said I would be making a motion before we voted on the final budget to increase to a level services budget. I received the following from the town administrator. The select board has made no commitment to my knowledge as we've only just received primary assessment information to date. As you know, Newbury values education greatly and has historically been very supportive of funding Triton, Whittier, and Essex Tech. But we are too struggling with declining revenues that outpaced expenses. On Friday, February 13th, I sent an email, in reply to that email, to the select board chair and the town administrator, respectfully asking them to close the loop and either email the school committee and make a statement or make a statement at their next meeting clarifying that they cannot make a level services budget work, which would be $1.1 million increase to Newbury. I also reminded them that we would need another town to approve our budget for it to be approved. I have not received a response. If you want to call them, you can ask them to respond, and we can have all the information in front of us.
Salisbury had a select board meeting scheduled for Monday, but it was canceled due to the storm. Last night, the Newbury Select Board meeting included discussions about the town's tight budget year. Their increases will include some of the same common themes: healthcare, supplies, and material costs, and competitive wages for public safety. Also noted were the end of a grant that supported fire department staff and sufficient federal COVID funds to cover only the 6 months of COA lease for fiscal year 27. As these funds run out, the costs will now need to come over to the operating budget. They are estimating an $870,000 total education increase with new revenues of $955,000 and a level service budget and the tentative school budget increase cost totaling $1.9 million. The board discussed needing a $500,000 override and mentioned that that amount could go higher. Given that this is a lot of information, I'd like to take 5 minutes recess to allow you to digest and come back to open the discussion and how we move forward from here. List any questions that members believe they still need answers to and provide the superintendent guidance if desired. Please remember not to engage in discussion during the break that might violate Mass open meeting laws. So if we could take a 5-minute break, please. Thank you all. Currently, the committee has the additional discussion tonight, as well as the budget discussion meeting planned for next Wednesday, March 4th. A meeting with representatives of our 3-member town select boards and finance committees and Triton's state senator and 2 state representatives on Thursday, March 5th. And the final budget vote will be on Wednesday, March 11th. The first thing I would like to pose is adding a school committee meeting on Monday, March 9th. The schedule as it stands lacks a meeting time between the next meeting with town boards and the final budget vote. Normally that works because the last couple weeks is mostly refining of the budget, but this year is clearly different, and I'm anticipating the committee may want to have additional discussion between the DCC and the budget vote. Are there any objections to adding a meeting on March 9th? It'll be at 7 p.m. and on Zoom.
On Zoom?
Yes.
Do we have a quorum for it?
I only heard from a couple of members, so can everybody make the Monday, March 9th meeting?
Seeing nods all around.
Okay, expect you there. Thank you, and to start discussion, are there any questions for Brian or Rich about the budget? Go ahead, Foster.
You know, I've heard a lot from students about not being happy about where the cuts are happening. Is there any opportunity to cut in other places to kind of redistribute it in a way?
Good question. So the target of the 1.725 million in reductions, that was our best thinking based on the amount of money we needed to be able to reduce. Again, 1.7 is a considerable amount of money. There was lots of discussion around tonight, or comments made around student facing. We have been, I think the reality is anyone who's been paying attention, is we've been doing this every year, right? Not to this degree, not with a roster of 27 FTEs, full-time equivalent reductions, but we have slowly trimmed away a lot of the support staff, administrators, so there isn't anything left. As I started at the beginning, we are a human services organization, so with 2,100 students and about 440 employees, that staffing is the only place where we can make sizable savings. In recent years, we've trimmed building repairs, natural gas, and over the past 3 years, we've overspent those lines so wildly that we needed to restore some of those. So in the adjusted fall budget that is that November that was approved, that reinstated some of those lines, shifting from some other areas of underspending, because the general operating maintenance, the lines are happening. I mean, we need to spend those dollars to make sure that the buildings are safe, clean, lit, and lit, literally, lights on, and heated. So yeah, are there other areas? I mean, there's other areas we've spoken about that we could potentially see some savings, as we finalize the budget. But the largest driver is the increases for staff, health insurance, which is $750,000. We now have that confirmed. Maybe another buffer of about $30,000 sitting there. But the majority of the reductions when you're cutting staffing is in the $50,000 to $100,000. And so obviously that's much more real savings when we're trying to get to a target. So, yeah.
I guess I'd just piggyback on that and say, you're a non-voting student representative of the committee, but you're have full rights to participate in any of the discussions. School committee members, student representative, regardless of that, you can absolutely ask to have another position or another department looked at. I think that to kind of echo Brian's concern is that everything's thin, right? So any place that's cut right now is going to have impact. I guess, I'll personally say, like, when we had the workshop a few weeks ago, there were places that I asked the administration not to look at this year. For many years, we talked about assistant principals. They have been doing yeoman's work as far as reducing chronic absenteeism. I personally requested, and the rest of the committee was in agreement as part of that conversation, that those not be looked at this year, because that work is basically a year and a quarter, year and a half in, and it's making progress, right? And that's something that I feel like we can't set aside. In some years, I know we've said essentially basic functions, try not to impair those. We're looking at the superintendent's office this year. We're looking at the business office this year. There are cuts that are in those departments, and kind of those aren't places that we've been able to look in the past, because it does impair the function of the district to some degree to just get the business done, the work done. So I guess beyond that, I would say, if you have places that you want to be considered, right, you have full copies of the budget, historical versions of all that are online, so you can see. In some cases, we've attempted cuts in the past. We cut custodians back in 2017, 2019, I think, one per elementary school, and found that we literally could not keep the buildings clean with one less custodian. Could we look at that? We could ask the superintendent to look at that again. That's part of what we can do. So, yeah.
I read what happened at each of the meetings, whether it be the DCC or the select board meetings, because not only here at the school committee, the people of our towns need to go to their select boards and listen to what they have to say as well. They are the ones who fund the schools. I can honestly say that I've been on this committee a long time, and I've tried to make sure that the DCC, which is our district communication committee, which is supposed to be the 3 towns sending representatives that can tell the school committee pretty much what the number is that they can afford. And then we would work with that. And next year, I'm hoping that we start our budget sooner. But again, the towns have to be engaged with us. The school committee can't do everything themselves. It's up to the towns to come to these DCC meetings with the representation that we've asked for them to have open and honest talks with the school. I can honestly say Salisbury has done that for the past few years. They've always come to the DCC meetings, having open, honest conversations about what the town's doing to make sure that they can support the schools. I can't say that for the other 2 towns. I know that Newbury has said for us to send a budget, whatever it is that the administration and the school principals and everybody wants, and send that, and they'll see what they can do. We as a school committee can't wait and make budget decisions waiting for the towns to make a decision on whether they can afford the budget that we send to them. We've, in good faith over the years that I've been on this committee, trying to have an open, honest discussions with our towns, for them to come to us and for us to have a high water mark so that the towns have a place to start doing their own budgets. Unfortunately, 2 of the 3 towns do not come to these DCC meetings with having any information that the school committee can use. This isn't a one-way street, it has to be a 2-way street. And everybody on this committee, the reason why we're here is because we want what's best for the students of our towns. But we also have to be mindful that our 3 towns can pay the school budget. Trust me, I want to put this $4.2 million budget out there and have the town's people vote on it. I know people didn't like what Mike said, but I've been on this committee a long time. You go to town meetings and people aren't there to even be there for town votes. So I'm putting this out there because this is an open and honest conversation, and we're trying to work with the budgets that we have. I personally don't believe that we can raise the budget higher than the tentative budget that we have. Number one, because in good faith, we've had this, and we've had the high water mark to be respectful of the 3 towns. And one of those towns has been Salisbury, that has said that they can afford the amount that we have put there. This is me talking as a school committee member. It's not the decision of the committee, but I'm putting out there so that people understand what my position is. Next year, I would like us to start talking to the towns in October, having a budget, which a lot of you don't understand that the state doesn't give us their numbers until the 2nd, 3rd, 4th week of January, which is why this process starts so late. But we're willing to come to the table with the towns in October and have assumptions on what we think the state's going to give us, so long as the towns come and do the work with us. It can't just be the school committee doing this. So I encourage you to call your selectmen, to go to those select boards and listen to what they're saying. You can even watch these select board meetings on their streaming. In YouTube, you can watch them. I'm not trying to say anything bad about any of the 3 towns, but 2 of the 3 towns have not come to the DCC meetings prepared to have meaningful conversations. So I open this up to the committee to
Can I just start with a question first, actually, because I missed the questions thing. I was going to hop in after Foster. So I was just going to ask for an explanation, because typically when this is, I guess, my just whatever from the conversations here tonight, when we're talking about 60% of a person with the visual and performing arts position, I know not all positions are 1.0s, so I had assumed that that is a 0.6 position currently. So it is not, it is a 1.0 position that's cutting to 0.4?
Correct.
Okay, so what would the plan be to fulfill those classes, given that we had said that classes themselves wouldn't be cut, just possibly some flexibility, to cover those it's essentially two classes, right? So what happens with those classes?
So it's either a part-time position, which I know someone said, obviously it would be challenging to keep anyone who moves from a full-time to a part-time position, or others can fill in those sections if they're qualified to do so. So the second piece I would add to that is the cuts as outlined at the high school represent 3.6 FTEs. A full-time course load for an educator is 5 sections, and so that's 0.2. And so those sections will likely shift as of the proposals in January. It was looking like there were sections available, 1.0, 5 sections in English within the math business department and with science STE, and based on current enrollments in VPA. That process is happening now, as several students in the back could attest to. Snow day yesterday, sorry again. The assemblies were supposed to start yesterday, those started today. And so that process is underway now. If enrollments and requests for courses dictate that those sections would be needed in order to run, it might be, obviously there's a basic formula for the number of students in the high school and the number of sections needed. And so generally the same sections add, or the same number of sections are there, total, making up a number, 150 sections across 200 sections. But if there's more interested in the VPA and less in social studies or somewhere else, then it could be that a section or two is taken from one department and not the other. So none of those, and maybe I didn't do a good job, apologize if I didn't describe that earlier in the process, but at the elementary level, it's straightforward, right? There are 60 students in a grade level, currently 4 sections of 15. If we cut it to 3 sections, it's 3 sections of 20. It's very basic math. At the middle school, it's very clean cut because of the way we have 2 core content per team. So in order, if you remove 1 core content, it actually makes sense to remove the other 3, and then it eliminates teams. Again, not a choice, it was an option. And then at the high school, it's literally by the FTE, by the fraction, the 0.2, the fifth of an FTE. And so that will continue to adjust. It may be pretty darn close to that, or it could adjust, and it could be in other areas, other departments, based on the enrollments that I would say within 2 to 3 weeks we'll have a clear sense of what that looks like.
So what does that look like in your planning when we're talking about these positions?
What does that look like in my planning? What do you mean?
Right, so you're accounting within, in the cuts that are in the budget, right, for a certain number of positions.
So committing to the 3.6?
Yes.
Is committing to 3.6 FTEs.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Where those are would remain fluid until the course enrollments are done.
Okay, and I believe the answer is no, because the way the math works out, but there are no other positions that are a 1.0 that are getting cut to a partial, is that correct?
Within these?
Yeah, within
these,
what's in the
correct.
budget. So they're all 1.0s.
Are you talking about district-wide?
I'm talking about the 26 point.
So there is the EL educators is actually a decrease of 1.1 total FTEs based on current service level needs across all the schools. The majority of the need is currently at Salisbury Elementary, much less at Newbury and Pine Grove, and then some at the middle high school. So that's a 1.1 total reduction. Again, not a single, it's multiple individuals impacted by that.
Yeah, got it.
So Brian, when they did the math on that, did they figure into it that both of the 2 music teachers are doing 6 classes right now and not just 5? So it's not really a...
It was part of the discussion, yes.
It was?
Yes.
So Brian, I have a question. You said the health insurance number has been locked in,
Yes.
and I thought I heard you say that there's been a savings attributable to that.
32,000?
Yeah, but as I was just saying earlier, our plowing has actually gone up a little bit this year because of the snow. So if you think about it, it's kind of a wash. So
Right, so I mentioned earlier.
But let's put the plowing aside for the moment, okay? We're talking about the VAP position at 0.6, okay? We're talking about some funds that could be available for that. We heard the people talk about the need and the importance of music. Couldn't we do the snowplow thing when the budget comes together, state budget comes together, at the end of this fiscal year?
Yes, I mean, I was just simply bringing up the fact that it's a small amount of money that can be taken up really quickly by something operational such as snow plowing and salting.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is the operational costs, right? We were just talking about our natural gas bill for January was about $93,000. So when you have a winter like this, right, it hits everywhere. And so that has to come from somewhere. Over the past 10 years, we had reserves, we've spent down excess and deficiency, we spent down stabilization for the building project, we had circuit breaker buffers, and school choice buffer, and all those buffers are gone. So for sure, yes, are there things that will change as we finish out this process? Yes. Medical was one we were waiting for. We now know that's about $32,000 in savings. The other things on the table are, will we get more state revenue, Chapter 70? I think we'll have a sense of that as the House finishes their budget. If that goes from 75 per pupil to 150 per pupil, there's $155,000. What I've heard the committee talk about to date was that money would be used to restore cuts, not necessarily further decrease the overall operating. So yes, as we go between now and March, what's the date, March 11th, Chapter 70, we're certainly not going to know. That would be a guess. But there are definitely things that will continue to adjust. I think they get measured in 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. There's no more magic $100,000s or $200,000 savings coming.
Doing better on interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10,000, 20,000.
And I'll say from the finance side of it, the finance committee side of it, I know that all three, previously three, now two, finance committee members were really uncomfortable. Like, we were sitting at 2.2% of the budget left with 5 months to go. That is really risky, right? That's you're not ordering paper for the last whatever, and, filling positions, and you're just hoping for the best, because in thinking about this talk about long-term strategy, we've had long-term strategies that we've worked in the years where there has been more funding, right? And now we have essentially spent through all of that. There's no more cushion to use to sort of soften the blow on a lot of this stuff. And we have to start being really concerned about that there's nothing, I don't want to say there's nothing left, but there's very little left if we're not forecasting budget numbers honestly. I'll just put it that way. Like, when we say we're going to hope that this comes in, we can't be at that point anymore, because we don't have the cushion that if that doesn't happen, we can take that anymore.
I would just say, I think that the reminder about the challenge is 31 years in a region, love regions, right? Believe in them, love Triton, but being in a region is really challenging, and we live and die as an entity like a municipality does. And so at the end of the year, there was a comment made about students and, budgets are numbers, students are not, and it's, I don't want to, the comment was well made, but I think the reality is what we are hopefully doing is doing the business side, so educators don't have to think about that, and that they can do the things that they need to do, which is the amazing work they do with students. But we have to, by law, at the end of the day, on June 30th, have to have at least 1 penny to the good. We can't be in the red by law. And so, we've gotten into this pattern of having to freeze the budget, and that, directly impacts the schools when we can't buy supplies anymore. And we all know, and any teachers left in the room, how much money they spend out of their own pockets buying supplies just to make ends meet and to do what they need to do in the classrooms. So the goal is to not have to have these type of discussions publicly, but the reality is we're bound by a financial system, state system that's walked away from it and left all of our cities and towns in the lurch. But we don't have an option. There isn't an option where we can just push things through and figure it out at the end of the year, because we can't by law. So.
To that point, right, I think it was last year we were here talking about how the management of the funds by one of our member towns compounded down the line. Like they made decisions on estimating what they had versus what they could receive and sort of overshot those marks and then left themselves in a hole, and we can't do that. Like, we agree, come in like revenues, we should estimate low, and costs we should estimate high, because that's where we get that cushion. I think I would also say that we heard loud and clear from our parents tonight that we undershot the expectations of our parents. And, you know, we have an obligation to have a tentative budget, and we put the tentative budget where we think that 2 of the towns historically would be able to afford it, knowing that it put one of our towns in a spot that they told us they can't afford, but also we don't have numbers. We're guessing. We're guessing on what the towns can afford, but I don't think we're guessing on what our parents want. And we are tied to certain timelines that are out of our control, some of those from the state and some of those from our regional agreement. But we have to look at our timelines so that we are receiving the feedback from the people who are impacted the most by our budget so that we can make the decisions in an informed fashion. And that is not what happens. And we, I think, do a pretty good job of trying to say, this is what we have, this is what it's going to cost, this is what it's going to require, but we don't get the information that we need from our towns, and we don't really allow ourselves to hear what our parents expect from us during that time frame. We tie our own hands a little bit by saying that this is a high water mark, and it makes absolute sense that we do that because the towns have to work with a number, but that isn't required. And I think we need to think, until we adjust our own processes, we need to think about calling this a high water mark and what that does to our ability to deliberate after receiving feedback from our communities.
So I have another utility question. I had heard that National Grid was going to offer the opportunity to level your payments throughout the year. Is there anything we can do on that front?
So we buy our electricity and our gas, the commodity, directly from distributors, and National Grid is just delivering it to us. So that's a program for you as a residential, because you're paying market rate. We don't pay market rate. We lock our rates in for 2-3 years at a time. And we had, right, so last year's budget, 2 years ago, we had been locked in for 5 years. I forget what the electricity rate was, but it was silly. It doubled, and we're still below the market, but we had a big market correction after having been locked for 6 years at a very low rate. So, yeah.
So as long as I've been on the committee, and you as well, I don't remember having such a hit on the utilities and heating and snow. And I'm just wondering if, speaking to our reps who are coming to us soon, if there's not a slush fund, because that's beyond our control, the weather and everything else. And it just seems to me that that's really a place that the state should step in and fill that gap.
Right, and I think there's legislative ways to address that simply, right? A city or a town, I'm not saying it's a good practice, can carry that debt, that negative balance into a new year. For us as a region, we can't do that. It's not a separate standalone line item. The kind of snow and ice budget isn't a separate entity, if you will. I mean, it's not a separate entity. That's not a good use of words. But it can be carried differently. If we could do that, that could change things, right? That could create a $50,000, $100,000 buffer at the end of the year. But I think that, by and large, we talk about the fact that the state has stepped away from Chapter 70. They've put new Chapter 70 every year in, right? Hundreds of millions every year, just at 1.5 billion new. It's going to a small percentage of cities and towns. This year, 87% only received the minimum. So now people who are like, oh my gosh, how do you survive? Yeah, we've been doing this for 30 years, getting the minimum. But there was actually an op-ed written by former, was he a rep? Rep Lenny Mira, talking about the states walking away from UGA, right? So it's great to talk Chapter 70. We get Chapter 70 directly as a region. If you're in Newburyport, Chapter 70 is one more funding mechanism going to the city as part of all the other aid. UGA is 100 million less than it was 20 years ago. In that same time, the overall inflation, everything else has doubled. So, I mean, that's, again, another example of where the state is just walking away, pushing this cost to the cities and towns, and leaving a cap of that override cap of 2.5%. I'm not going to argue for or against it, but you can't do that and also keep that cap in place that limits our town's abilities to raise that revenue.
Would anybody else like to?
I apologize, I have to make my exit. I have to go study for testimony.
Thank you, Foster, as always. Would it?
Owen's got it.
Does anybody have any other concerns, questions?
I mean, I guess here's what it comes down to for me. Like, we've talked about a lot of things that we can maybe do differently next year, although, I mean, I agree with hearing you say, like, we need more information from the towns. I kind of agree with Paul, although I think we're very, very stuck where Mass General Law says we have to propose a budget and then we have to receive the feedback on the proposed budget. Like, there's not a lot of wiggle room there. I don't know how we would do something more than the public comments or things that we're already doing now to solicit additional feedback. Like, we can work on those long term, but in the short term, I can only say I am very confused by Newbury and what is going on there. And gobsmacked, I guess, is the right term for it. I don't know. I don't understand kind of what's happening there with the statement at DCC that they could, I understand that it was easy to say in that situation, but there did seem to be the point where they could make a mark. And then, earlier in the discussions, it seemed like they were going to avoid an override. Now they need I am unsure what's going on there. So I think that's part of it. And then I agree with your point, Brian, that when the House budget comes out, we'll know more about minimum aid. But I think that our legislators, they usually come in with some conservative, but some insight, right, onto what they think could potentially happen. I wouldn't want to overestimate any of that, but, I would definitely want to hear what they would say. In that we're at the point where we're usually providing guidance, I think we need more information before we can have an intelligent discussion. My thought would be, I'll say at this point, I'm not even sure it's worth meeting next Wednesday. I think we need to have the DCC. That is the big conversation where it all comes down. And I think we need to urge the town boards to show, we need to urge the townspeople to show to that meeting, because that meeting is where all of these pieces that are essentially falling apart right? And we're not sure where things are at, they should, in theory, all come together. I would say have the DCC meeting, have the meeting on the 9th, that becomes our formative discussion. And hopefully we'll have a lot more information or enough information at that point to make some more educated decisions. I do think that that concern needs to be communicated to the folks that show up there. So that they need to please come, that there is a lack of understanding, that we could really use some more understanding about, I mean, to whatever, like Rowley invited Paul and myself and Brian and Rich. So we've seen to some degree within Rowley's numbers, but I do not have a whole lot of understanding about Newbury's numbers. Salisbury, to Linda's point, was fairly forthcoming in their information. So that's something that's been, sort of public year after year. But I think getting some clarity on Newbury, getting some clarity on state information would be tremendously helpful at this point. I'll just say at this point, I can't personally see going up to a level funded or level services budget. I guess I have grave concerns about what that does long term. There are definitely risks in both directions, but knowing that this is not a one-time situation, I feel like we need to have this sort of ongoing attempt to reach a balance. And I don't think coming up to level funding, or level services rather, is a balance that we would be hitting this year. But I don't know where the balance is, and I think we need more information than what we have in order to get to figure out where that is. Where does that sit within the context of where we're at today? So my thought would be cancel Wednesday, keep the DCC Thursday, add the meeting on Monday, final vote on the 11th, because the regional agreement requires that we do that.
Can I just throw out, it's been a minute since we've done it, but there were years, when I go back to 9, 10, right, with those wild budget years, where the towns agreed and said, okay, we'll wait for the final budget. I know it always had to do with, and this is a town question, the warrants for town meeting when it has to be available 30 days prior, printing, I don't know that whole schedule, but I know Newbury used to be earlier and is now bumped into the first week of May. Rowley's in May, Salisbury is much later in May.
Yeah, there was a conversation at last night's Newbury Board of Selectmen meeting that they're deciding between a couple of different dates, and it may be moving earlier into April. It was.
I think that's next year.
That's this year.
It actually did sound like next year. I was very confused by it.
I'm like 99.8% because they were talking, because they hold it in the auditorium.
Yeah.
And so asked that same question. I was like, we can't, the play's there, staff's gone. But that's, and she was like, no, we're talking about next year. So I'm pretty sure that's for next year.
Okay.
But if that's the case, and then it's 30 days, Wednesday, April 1st is a Wednesday, right? So if we could have the month of March to continue the conversation with our legislators, to continue to hear, is the House at least Ways and Means, or is the House going to put something else in there that gives us some nod that, excuse me. Again, I don't think there's anything else on our end as far as revenues or costs that are going to continue, but it'll allow us to continue to not push. I think your timeline makes sense. It doesn't make, personal opinion, it doesn't make sense for you to come back and talk about anything next Wednesday without more input. Next Thursday's DCC needs to be a major input, right? You need major inputs from each of the three towns, our legislators. And then, yes, let's still have that meeting on the Monday, the 9th, and have to be ready to vote on the 11th. But if we could talk with our towns, I know you wanted to message the towns about coming.
I'm going to send an email tonight highly recommending them to come with
actionable information? And could we also say we'd love to talk about potentially delaying the final vote to April 1st, or just to put it out there? It would just give everyone more time to figure this out, right? I think back to the 9, 10, 11 years with the wild cuts, it's just different now, right? The way the state budget works, the way the town's enrollments are. I mean, back then, we talked about 15 years ago, Rowley was 34%, Newbury was 34%, I'm sorry, 32, and Salisbury was 36. And so the pieces of the pie were more equitable. Now you've got, it's shifting sands every year, putting more than half of the assessment onto Rowley. So it's just a different beast. So I don't think we're going to get any, there's not going to be any magic that happens in March as far as things that solve the problems for us. But I think it gives us more time to work with the towns to create a strategy and a plan. To your point about, yes, I think and no, we need to do things different and earlier and often next year, but we're way too far down the path this year to be able to rethink the entire process. That month of having the full month of March really could be beneficial in just figuring out a path forward.
We have one member from each of the towns here. Oh, that's right, Newbury. Sorry, Jordan, I thought you were from Newbury. Right. But I'm going to, at least 2 of you are here. Just go back to your boards and please make sure there's representation on Thursday. I'm going to be sending an email to the 3 town chairs, select board chairs, and we need to have more concrete information. And Rowley needs to show up. So.
Did you have more?
I have a lot more, but go ahead.
I just wanted to make 2 comments. One is that by April 1st, we won't have House Ways and Means. It doesn't come out until the 2nd week of April, so that won't be available. But yeah, to your point, like the farther it goes along, sometimes the more you know. But the other point I want to make is just because I hear the call to start talking earlier, but I guess I wonder, I don't understand the push to do that. I think it all has to be together. So it has to be a commitment on all sides to say we're all going to come together and all start doing this early, right? Both towns and district. But the other piece of this is that as long as we are reliant on the statutory method, and that is the only method of calculating the town assessments in our regional agreement, which we personally cannot control, we are still going to get stuck in that 4th Wednesday in January when those budgets come out and all of a sudden things that might have looked pie in the sky coming in, or at least understandable coming in, we're hitting this point where literally before the Triton district budget increases $1, one town is paying $423,000 more, and the other ones are paying less. And we cannot see that coming. We cannot own our own fate. And talking about like planning long-term, if that is the goal here, we cannot do that with the statutory method. There is no way for us to do that with the statutory method because we can't even see it coming a month in advance. We can't see it coming a week in advance, much less see it coming in October or years ahead of time. And I don't know, like, I guess you can have the best of intentions. You got to be prepared to have a depth charge dropped in the middle of that and have the whole thing blown to pieces if you still got the statutory method as the assessment methodology.
However, we've spoken to the 3 towns. Again, the DCC is supposed to be the vehicle for the communication between the school committee. And once again, Salisbury is the town that always says, let's find an alternative assessment. It's the other 2 towns that refuse to sit down. I won't say they refused because...
Yeah, there were years, right? And I think it gets stuck because there are a lot of things that people want another assessment formula to do. And you can, if you want it to be simple and easy for people to understand, it's very hard to also make it predictable long-term and also make it fair. So you have to prioritize certain things, and when you start prioritizing something and looking at formulas that could help you in that direction, you start losing in the other directions. And essentially a decision has to be made at some point to say, maybe it's not understandable, but maybe it's working for us for long-term predictability, and that is our priority, right? Or we care more about fairness between how it looks, the division between the three towns, and how that looks fair. And we care maybe a little bit less about long-term and not at all about simplicity. And I think that's the point where we got stuck previously, was the main priority was making it simple and easy to explain. And then you sort of lose out on long-term predictability, and you lose out on this idea of fairness. And as soon as you lose out on an idea of fairness, it comes down to this, well, who's the winner next year? I'm going to be paying more than I was previously. That town's going to be paying less. And then the idea of simplicity being your priority sort of goes out the window, and you're back to this notion of it has to meet all three kind of expectations. And I mean, we looked at a lot, and I'm not sure I can say I don't think you'll ever find one that will meet all three of those expectations.
But I think the three towns have to try. The three towns, because it can't be the 9 people around this table and Brian and Rich. It has to be the three towns agreeing. And we've spoken about it, and one member of the community spoke about it, that the three towns have to think outside of the box. Again, it can't be just the committee, because we can't make the decisions for the towns. The DCC has to be the vehicle where the representation has to be engaged. We're always willing to engage. I always say we're a village and we need each other. I know they're all going to laugh when I say that, but I truly believe we need each other, the towns and the schools, and fighting each other. And we need the people. The people need to tell their selectmen what they want. You can tell us too, but if we don't have the towns engaged in what you want, it will never happen.
I think going back to a point Narissa made a few points ago, when we talk about starting the budget process earlier, I think it starts even prior to the DCC meetings. I think it starts at going to your select boards and being heard, because that's the first step. That's informing your select boards where your priorities are. That's how we start, right? Those are how those conversations start with us. We start here, we say our priorities, the select boards then come in and say theirs, and we go back and forth. And I know that it can feel like that's taking away from the people, but the people can start with their select boards. And if the select boards are informed about where they would like town money spent, that means when we start at DCC, the select boards are now starting with an informed opinion of what their townspeople want. They can come to us and say, well, we've heard from our townspeople, and this year they want to see A done. And how does A fit into the Triton budget and funding that Triton budget? So when we talk about needing the towns, we also need the townspeople to start, and that can start early, August, September, October, so that when we do start those DCC meetings earlier.
It can start tonight.
It could start now for next year. I will take any, if you would like to start right now, I'm in. Because anything that helps our select boards come to our meetings ready with not just a number, but kind of a direction, helps us start our budget process and inform it. So when we talk about starting it early for us, I think the bigger conversation is starting it early in our towns. And I know we've said it before, and we're always like, please come to town meeting, please say this. And I know it's hard. I also have 3 children. I also coach. I also work. Like, I hear it. My kids are currently sitting at a school right now waiting to be picked up from a sport. So we get how hard it is. We're all, yeah, I know, right? I'm a little late.
Do we have to report that, or?
Stop it, somebody's going. I checked. So I think we're all in that same boat, but you can go to your select board meeting and simply say, like, just a heads up, I am a parent or I'm a stakeholder in the town wanting to talk about the budget, and this is where I'd like to see the drive go. That helps us later, and it doesn't help us move any faster, because honestly, the state doesn't move super fast. Not that I'm judging, just saying nothing negative, but it helps us drive kind of a cleaner ship. So to Narissa's point, and we need everybody. I also really like the new version of meeting schedule that Narissa brought up that allows us to get more information, because I honestly think we're missing vital pieces to have an informed discussion. And I don't want it to look like we're pushing off the vote, but I also think that we need more information and more discussion with our towns before we take that on. So I agree with Narissa and Linda in moving some meetings around and doing that. Thank you.
One comment on that. If we're going to cancel the March 4th meeting, I personally at least would prefer to do an in-person meeting, not a Zoom meeting. I think that I hear and understand more of what people are saying when we're at this table than we're on Zoom. And I expect that that is true in several ways for other members. When we talked about that Zoom meeting originally, we had the 4th still on the calendar, and if we're not going to have, like, I need that extra meeting in person. I need that discussion.
Can everybody make it to the?
That's a me, but.
Yeah. I guess we need to make sure our videographer can make it too. Can everybody here make it on March 9th at 7 p.m.? Yes. Shake your head, Caitlin. Paul said no. Yeah. Hey, videographer, are you available Monday?
We're running out of people to vote, so we kind of have to make it the reason.
Can I get back to you with a firm answer once I confer with other members of my household?
Tell me what you need to be here.
Drivers. I need, yeah.
Drivers.
I mean, you have a week, basically, so, yeah. I'm not saying, like, figure it out in a week. I'm just saying, like, you could get her an answer. You have a week to get her an answer. It's not an immediate thing.
Matt's point was if one person couldn't be here, then to move it back to Zoom, but I don't want to be the reason that happens. I want to be respectful of Paul, so just give me until tomorrow to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so no meeting on March 4th. DCC meeting with our state representatives and all of our 3 towns, select board, finance committee, town managers, town administrators, anybody that we can get to get in that.
Matt wants to add someone else.
So are we confident that they're going to come to the DCC with the information we need? And what's going to be the approach if they don't?
All we can do is what we always do, is strongly recommend them that they have to be here to give us something. I mean, we've been doing this for years, and we don't get the towns of Rowley, especially, to come with the numbers that we need, and come with communication, come with, the only thing we hear, unfortunately, is they can't afford to pay. Even $1, they said right out of the get-go this year that they couldn't even afford what the state was assessing them.
I wasn't necessarily talking about Rowley.
No, I'm talking about Raleigh and Newbury as well. Last year, this year, they come the 12th hour to give us information, and then the school committee has to jump through hoops to, the communication has to be better. They can't just send representation and they don't say a word the whole meeting. All we can do is on the DCC, like I always say, to have open and honest conversations. If they don't come with that information, I don't know what we can do, other than do what we've always done, is try to get a budget done as best we can. And that's why I want the town communities to start looking at their select boards, not just at the school committee.
But legally, we can change the budget, we can go higher, maybe not morally. Why is it so loud?
You made her mad.
Oh, wow. Oh,
No.
see, now I'm off.
We could go higher,
She just muted me.
however, it is
But I think we
going-
need to convey that to Newbury, like, give us the information, or we're just gonna guess, and you might not like our guess.
Right, however, you have to be mindful of the other town who has always given us the number that we need, has come to the table with the information. And if we're going to say that we're going to raise that budget, it raises it for them too.
No, I get that fully.
No, what I'm just saying is there's consequences in what we're about to do.
And I just want to say to Mike's point, I don't think we know what Rowley and Newbury would do at a town meeting. I think Mike knows what Salisbury would do. So I think we have a pretty good indication we're not going to get two towns, and that can't be overlooked.
Right, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And once again, it's us around this table and the town's not doing anything about it.
I just want to give Jordan credit, because it's his first year, and he keeps showing up over and over again.
Jordan, it takes one person on a finance committee or a select board to help your boards understand. Salisbury has done that. I would give a lot of credit to Ronald Lee Parrott. Ronald Lee Parrott educated the Salisbury board very well on the educating, how important it was to educate Salisbury kids and to make sure that they helped and looked at the future to make sure that they funded the schools. So I'm hoping you are that person, Jordan. No pressure.
And I just want to say, like, I think, Linda said a lot of words here tonight that could be seen as blame, and I don't think it's blame. I think it's just frustration. No one wants to sit here and make cuts. No one wants to sit, like, this hurts. Almost all of us have kids in this school system. We are feeling the pain. We have relatives in this school system. One of my relatives who was a student here was here tonight. And that's so hard to see when you're up here making these decisions, knowing that it's going to affect, right? And I think we felt everything that was said here tonight. And sometimes it's frustration because you're trying to make as good decisions as you can, and all the things we've talked about lately. You're restricted by processes. You're restricted by documents. You're restricted by law. You're restricted by all these things from doing the thing you believe is the right thing to do. And a lot of times you just have no control, right? We can't open people's books. We can't make people come to meetings. We keep trying to change Mass General Law. We'll get there eventually. But you can't, like, there's a lot of things that we're just sort of existing inside this structure, and that structure is really, really frustrating when you want to do the right thing and you want to plan long term and you want to have a great school system, and it's just I can say, like, 11 years on the committee, other than those COVID years, it is a struggle every single year. I landed in the hospital my very first budget season. And I still feel every year like this is, as much as it's winter, it's also like it's the darkest time in our year. We spend a lot of time doing really good things, and then we come to this, and it's just hard and stressful and makes you wonder why you do it all over again.
And it's not blame. It's when you have these people in front of you saying, why are you doing the things that you're doing for our school? It's because there isn't enough information that flows for us to make a decision that Raleigh can afford $2 million if we put edit level services, that Newbury can afford $1 million. And to say, send it to the town, send it to the people, then the school has no budget, waiting whether the town people are going to vote for the override or come to town meeting to vote for it. We have to try and get the budget set prior to that in order for us all to be able to educate and know what your budget is. So it's not blame, I'm sorry, it is blame. I'm just going to say it.
That took a turn.
No, because I've been on this committee the longest. I've been on this committee for 18 years. And every year, the budget isn't easy. And Dina was the chair, then it was Narissa, and they set standards that I try and uphold, and I'm getting to the point that I can't uphold those standards because we don't have the towns coming and working with us. So I'm putting the blame on the towns because our DCC meetings, go back and watch however many you would like to watch. And there isn't back and forth information. It's usually accusations that the school is breaking the towns.
I just want to be entirely fair and say the school committee has thrown some accusations as well. In its time.
I don't agree with that. So. I usually don't say this much either. I mean, I usually very level-headed, but this hurts because I already know next year is going to be just as bad. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Sorry.
So do we have agreement on meeting dates?
No meeting on March 4th, DCC meeting at
Salisbury, I think.
6 o'clock or 6:30?
6:30.
6:30 in Salisbury, and our 3 state representatives will be there. And then Monday here, Caitlin, at 7 o'clock.
You can do it. And a final budget vote next Wednesday, the 11th.
And a final vote, March 11th.
Wednesdays, you're correct, 2 Wednesdays.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Unless we're going to ask about potentially doing that.
Well, should we put that in the email? Yeah, we'll put it in the email to the 3 towns. The we. I start the email and then somebody.
Deborah's not the only ghostwriter in the room.
Because Narissa will say you can't write that. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Have a nice evening.